But the bigger question, James, is all right, you just laid out all of the bad. Okay, how do we fix it?
Yeah, that's the biggest question that I have too. I mean, clearly Mike Brown after the game hinted that Keegan Murray was going to start moving forward. But even if he doesn't, I mean, he played 38 minutes. I mean, he leads the team in scoring in the last two games. I mean, not non-scoring in minutes played in the last two games. And I mean, I thought Keegan, like, he needed to go through a back-to-back like that where you start to feel what it is to go through games, after, giving your all the one night and coming up short and then having to face it the next night. So I'm glad that Mike Brown did run him out there for whatever, 38 something. But yeah, I think the way you fix it is you stay together on defense and you keep getting better because this team is a work in progress. We know that. They have their basic offense, their basic defensive sets in, and they need to grow off of those. You know, the Kings have 3 days off right here to prepare for Memphis, where they can clean up a bunch of stuff, and that's good. But at the same time, Fox has been incredible. Sabonis is coming around. Keegan Murray has been like off the charts. Kevin Herter, even though he had a bad shooting night, Kevin Herter goes like, what do you go, 1 of 9 from three, and he's still shooting 48% from three on the season.
Hmm.
I mean, and that's even taking in consideration like small sample size stuff. That's nuts that he's still that high up. But it's time. It's time for Harrison Barnes to start playing. It's time for Davion Mitchell to snap out of it. We saw Malik Monk really start off slow the first two games and come around in game three. It's time for these other guys to come around because this team does not have that type of depth for two or three of their major rotational players just to not be able to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree with it. I think that these guys, and you look at Davion, I guess there's a little less of a sample size with him, but Harrison Barnes, the way he's playing right now is unacceptable because he's a much better player than that. And that's just not going to get it done. I want to say the same for Davion because, I think Davion is better, but he's the second year player. Maybe I have it wrong or something like that. But we've seen it from Harrison. It's just it's unacceptable the way he's been playing in these first three games, and he's got to be better, man.
I have a piece that's going to go up in just a little while, probably while we're on the air here. And I looked at some of the numbers, and the problem that I have is, you always look at a 3 game sample size and go, okay, let's be cautious here. It's the same numbers from preseason, and it's the same look from preseason, and that's when you start to go, okay, preseason means nothing, but it's still 4 games. You can still look at those 4 games and look at stats and say, okay, what went on here? And Harrison shot 2 of 16. What's
Real
that?
quick, I'll take it a step further. It's the same. It looks the same as last year.
Well,
To
no, I
me,
mean,
it looks.
defensively, maybe.
He
Yeah.
had a 4 point performance last year too. I know he'd have one where he'd have 25, but he looks like the same player.
Yeah,
It's
I
he looks
mean,
like the same.
but I'll take a player who averages 16.4%, 16.4 points per game and shoots 39% from three over a player who went 2 of 16 in the preseason from three and now has missed his first 5. And if you're going to play for a team that's fourth in the NBA at 40.7 3-point attempts per game, and you're the starting small forward, and you're playing 29 minutes a night, and you've only taken 5 3-pointers through 3 games.
Hmm.
Like, I'm confused. Like, where is it? Is it something wrong physically? Is it something wrong mentally? And like, I just can't imagine at this point that Harrison Barnes is just like lost it. Like he's lost the fastball. But steps to the line and shoots 53% from the free throw line. He's a career 80% shooter. So something feels off, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to fix it, but it's something that has to be addressed like very quickly because as of right now, does KZ Okpala deserve to lose his starting job for Harrison Barnes? I don't think he does. Like if Keegan Murray is going to start, who should sit? And like if you're just looking at the numbers, like there's one guy who just like on the defensive end, on the offensive end, it just doesn't matter. So again, like he's earned the right to have some leeway here, but like your team's 0-3. Like how many games do we have to go through where it's like, okay, what is happening here? And this can be on Mike Brown to figure out.
Any scenario where we potentially see two new guys in the starting lineup, and we've proposed, we've talked about this in the past as hypotheticals, but kind of here we are. Obviously, Keegan Murray would be one, and then Malik Monk is the other, with Kevin Huerter sliding down to the starting three, Keegan Murray being the four, and Malik Monk being it two.
Yeah, I just think if you looked at the way that Monk ran the second team in this last game, that is what you were hoping for. And it's not what he scored 16 points. Like, we expect him to score. But Mike Brown talks about this too. Like, we expect De'Aaron's, he's scoring 30 points a game. That's fine. Like, he's a scorer. That's what he's supposed to do. I need you to do other things. And the good thing is Fox is averaging like 5.7 rebounds per game. He's averaging 7 assists per game, but he's also playing defense.
Mm-hmm.
And people could argue with me. He's playing defense. I'm watching, and he is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. He's playing defense. And so when it comes to Monk, if Monk can somehow come off the bench and do anything close to what he did in this game, where he puts up 16 points but 8 assists and 7 rebounds, like, that's why you went out and got Monk. That's why you paid him close to $10 million a year. And so I think it's better to keep him on that second unit, because for him to be really effective, part of his game is to get those 4 assists, 5 assists, 6 assists. That's part of who he is, and how he gets going is to get going downhill with a guy like Richaun Holmes, set him up for a couple of times, then get his own, and then like kind of go back and forth. And that's really tough to do when you're in a starting lineup with a bunch of other guys who are heavy usage, heavy minutes guys.
So with that, James, we are 3 games into the season, and I think we all agree Keegan Murray's a good enough player to start. He should be starting. It's productive enough and all this other stuff. Is there any other like minutes rotation changes that need to change, or would that be a little bit of a panicky move? Like, should the only thing that really change minutes distribution wise is Keegan's in the starting lineup now, and see what happens to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think at some point you do have to give players time to like figure out who and what they are in a new system with a new head coach. I think like we're watching Davion Mitchell really struggle to figure out who he's supposed to be playing next to Monk. And, I wrote about that, about their chemistry building during training camp, but then you get to the regular season and, Monk started struggling with his shot early on. Davion has struggled. I think Davion struggled overall. He's looking for a shot a lot. When he's looking to distribute, I think he's much better. When he's playing off ball, I think he's much better, and he needs to move off ball, which is a problem. He's not sort of finding those seams that you need to find, that you see Huerter. Like, how many times do you just look and Huerter is wide open because he's moving without the ball so well. And it's something that, guys like Davion, guys like De'Aaron, it doesn't come natural to them. They're used to playing on ball. So, yeah, I mean, as far as like blow it up, like I don't think you can blow it up 3 games into the season. I think you have to give Davion a little bit more time. I think you've got to give Monk more time to like figure out this role, but also Richaun Holmes. Richaun Holmes, is a guy who he played better, and I think his numbers look better in this last game. But did anyone else notice that it was James Wiseman who got half of those points to start the second quarter and just absolutely was everywhere? And the whole time you're wondering where is Richaun Holmes in the pick and roll? And they just got killed in the pick and roll like one time after another after another. And so I think that you can't panic, but you need these guys to settle in and find their spots. And it's not easy. It's not easy to go from a guy who's been a starter for 3 years in Sacramento to a guy coming off the bench playing 14 minutes a night like Richaun Holmes is. It takes an adjustment period, and it takes an adjustment period when you again aren't playing with Tyrese Halliburton, who throws a perfect lob to you every time and gets you wide open. The Kings aren't even running pick and rolls like 90% of the time. So Richaun has to figure things out, just like I think a couple of these guys do.
I thought Rashawn was a little more aggressive yesterday. Particularly, I mean, and it may be one of those cases where it felt like there was nothing on the line because it felt like for the bulk of the third quarter on that the game was over. And then, obviously it very much wasn't. And Rashawn was a part of that team that made a run, but that was the most aggressive I think he's been this offseason this season, and it was effective. And it feels like a lot of guys haven't figured out, and you could maybe throw Harrison Barnes into this equation too. It feels like there's a handful of guys who haven't really figured out the appropriate aggression level on the offensive end yet.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I don't want to give, like, playing a new role is one thing, right? And I really do believe that for some of these guys, it's like playing a completely different role, like for a guy like Holmes. But like for a guy like Harrison Barnes, like you just can't make that excuse because you're watching Keegan Murray, who basically plays the same position, and just goes out and does his thing, you know? So, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
there
he's a
has to
better
be.
player though. Like Keegan's a better player than Rashawn is.
Well, no, but I'm saying Harrison.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. I'm saying then Harrison. I mean, like, look, those guys play different roles. Sure, Harrison and I mean Rashawn and Keegan, they play different roles, but Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes play the same role, and just
Yeah.
one of them is coming in and like averaging 17 and a half points a game in his first two games, even though he doesn't know any better, and the other's averaging 7, and those 7 aren't easy to come by. And so you're just wondering what it is that where the adjustment happens, and if it can happen, or if that's not the adjustment that has to be made, that has to be more drastic. And so, yeah, I'm confused by what's happening with Harrison Barnes. And, we haven't really talked to him that much, but when we do, he always says, this team needs to be given the opportunity to be this year's team and not have 16 years weighing on them. And that's okay, but
He's right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that remark.
I agree, but then how am I supposed to look at Harrison Barnes, who has a 10-year track record of who he is, and then look at the players that I'm seeing now? Because that doesn't make any sense to me either. So I understand like giving this group the benefit of the doubt, but I also know that, the game is based on statistics and off of track records and off of, what you did last year. And, I've seen a player that, that I think we all respect greatly and for who he is on and off the court. And he doesn't look like the same guy all of a sudden. And to me, that seems a little strange, especially when he's 30 years old and he's not a guy who slacks. He came in great shape. If anything, he looks a little lighter than normal. And, those are things that you just kind of look at and go, okay, I'm not sure what's happening here. It's 3 games, but it's more than that. If I go back to preseason, and I feel bad for Mike Brown in a sense, because when you walk into a season, one of the few things that you figured you did not have to worry about at all was Harrison Barnes.